caught in Brooklyn with potential explosives going on the subway. And I have a little piece that you may want to see that gives you a little bit of background on other incidents before today. February 26, 1993. It's the day foreign terror blasted New York into a new reality.
I never want to go through that again. I'll never go in that building. It was horrible, the feeling not getting out, not being able to get out. You felt smothered.
Within a week, the FBI had the undercarriage of the Ryder rental van that carried the bomb and its first suspect in New Jersey, a Palestinian named Mohammed Salameh. And then another Palestinian, chemical engineer Nadel Ayad, whose voice was captured on a message left for the Daily News.
This is the Liberation Army. We conducted the explosion at the World Trade Center.
The FBI discovered this ripped photo of Ayad in a garbage can outside his New Jersey home, the accused terrorist posing with a grenade beneath a Palestinian flag. The feds also found him posing with Egyptian radical El Sayed Nosair at Attica State Prison in New York before the Trade Center bombing, but after Nosair had been convicted of gun charges in the fatal shooting of Rabbi Meir Kahane. Within months, the group would be linked to a much larger conspiracy. A blind Egyptian sheikh named Omar Abdelrahman finally surrenders from a Brooklyn mosque after the FBI discovers a bomb factory at a Jamaica Queens warehouse. Surveillance tape showing a half-dozen men delivering steel drums to the site.
As we entered the bomb factory, the 5 subjects were actually mixing the witch's brew.
The sheikh was later convicted of plotting attacks on the UN and bridges and tunnels linking New York and New Jersey. This evidence tape shows ringleader Sadiq Ali doing a run-through in the Lincoln and Holland tunnels, even scoping out areas where security personnel are stationed. Within a year of the sheikh's life sentence, 2 letter bombs arrived at the United Nations, not long after others had turned up at a federal prison housing the sheikh.
All were postmarked from Alexandria, Egypt.
And on February 23, 1997, the city was once again shaken by a fatal shooting rampage, this one on the observation deck of the Empire State Building. In this case, 69-year-old Palestinian Ali Abu Kamal from Gaza City killed a Danish tourist and then himself, leaving behind a letter that railed against Americans and Zionists, stating a goal to murder as many as possible. Obvious from that piece that this has been a continuing problem for our city ever since 1993.
And still what they want to know is, how we were so vulnerable at the airports. And there had been threats of recent groups linked to Osama bin Laden, who many officials in Washington believe is the one behind it, although no one, he has not directly claimed responsibility for this attack. But
one thing that bears repeating, though, is that these flights did not originate in New York City. One of the flights originated in Boston.
Newark. Out of Newark.
Okay.
Out of Newark Airport. And also we should mention that Mayor Giuliani did say the city virtually is closed for security purposes, and he says to give New Yorkers confidence. People trying to come in from New Jersey should be aware that eastbound Route 3, eastbound Route 80, the bridges and the tunnels remain closed while officials deal with this crisis that all began unfolding shortly after 9 o'clock this morning when 2 jetliners slammed into the World Trade Center. That damage ultimately bringing down the Twin Towers, and no word yet on the extent of casualties.
I believe right now we're going back to our colleague Larry Hoff, who is live downtown. I believe he's still near City Hall, which basically has sort of become a command central for a lot of the operation. Larry?
Near Ground Zero. Larry?
Well, we return live outside City Hall here. You're looking down on Center Street, and things have cleared dramatically from just an hour ago. Tilt up just a little bit, the last of the plume coming out of the World Trade Towers, that destructive site there, still blotting out the sun. We haven't seen that many of the rescue workers returning here. It's still that steady flow of people coming out of the financial district, and an ash and dust just covers the area. One thing I'd like to bring up right now, we can't get a TV signal down here, and because of all the problems with cellular and all, we're not hearing really the broadcast. the wild stories that are now emulating, and that's almost becoming frightening here. Everybody's coming by. I'm not even going to repeat the things that people are speculating on right now, and that's one of the real scares that you have out here, people reacting to all of that, and they are some hairy stories as well. So this is where, you know, we count on you guys to kind of centralize everything and keep it in order for us. So we'll continue on watch. Probably we'll be handing off to some other people in a little while, and we'll continue our coverage, you know, tomorrow morning as well. So I'll say goodbye to you guys right now.
Okay, Larry, thank you very much for staying with us. But it's a long day for you and for all of us as we continue to report on the unfolding events of this worst terror attack ever in U.S. history, the worst terror attack, you might say, really on humanity.
And they're calling it another Pearl Harbor. We can't say that enough. I mean, such a surprise attack. The planes first apparently hitting the Twin Towers here in New York, and then, of course, the bomb and explosion in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and then there were other explosions as well.
Right, the one in the Pentagon, 4 planes involved. We'll give you more details on that and wrap it all up, the events that began unfolding this morning. But I believe you have a tape report, Mary. They say it's ready now.
Well, as we've been telling you all morning, this happened just before 9 o'clock. People just getting to work, just coming off the trains down near the Twin Towers. Many people coming off the PATH trains out of New Jersey and, you know, reading the wire copy, hearing the reports from our colleagues out in the field. They're telling us that people, as soon as they got off the trains, were told, do not go into the Twin Towers, go nowhere near the Twin Towers. So they were basically just fleeing. And then, of course, another explosion rocked the area. We've put together some tape to recap the events of this morning, and I think that's ready now. And just in case you're just joining us to see what happened starting just about 9 o'clock this morning. The first plane hit right as the workday began for 50,000 people in the Twin Towers, right before 9 a.m.
There are flames. There is a massive fire here.
Our WB11 cameraman was underneath the skyscrapers 18 minutes later when the second jetliner aimed for a second tower.
I mean, we have a huge hole. We have a lot of dead American people up here, and we need answers.
Some witnesses saw bodies falling out of the towers. Another reported a man and woman holding hands, jumping together from somewhere near the 80th floor.
I was supposed to be on the 82nd floor for a 9 o'clock meeting, and I was about 10 minutes late to get there. And they're telling me now that planes were going through the 82nd floor area. So I guess I was kind of covered by somebody up above.
As the debris rained down, blowing shoes, briefcases, pencils, and other articles from people's desks, the blinding smoke enveloped most of Lower Manhattan's world-famous skyline. Within an hour, the towers were falling down.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
At St. Vincent's Hospital, stretchers lined the streets. Doctors and nurses stood by with IV bottles as ambulance after ambulance arrived, carrying survivors clearly still in shock. Even the city's emergency medical workers themselves among the victims, firefighters and police officers. One couple answered the call for blood donations.
I saw the second tower come down. I saw more than I ever wanted to see in one day.
And it was enough to bring you down here to help. What do you hope to do here?
There's nothing else we can do, but give blood is something we can do, and I hope everybody who can do that will do that.
Obviously, people nowhere near the scene moved, upset, crying based on what they saw today on television, in person, over the bridge, over the river.
We haven't begun to hear the stories of horror in there and the stories of heroism. I'm sure they're going to come out in the days ahead.
I believe now we're going to Melinda Murphy, who has been hovering over what was once the Twin Towers since early this morning when this happened. Melinda, you have an update on the subways and the buses and tunnels?
You're looking at live pictures from Air 11. We are the only aircraft allowed to fly in this entire country, which is not allowed or not a part of the military and/or rescue operation at this point. As you can well see, this is the section of Manhattan where the World Trade Centers used to stand, the lower Manhattan area. Now it's been replaced by a large plume of smoke, which goes several thousand feet up into the air. That smoke is now darkened again, and that is because the flames are starting to flame up again. Several buildings are on fire at this point. This is making it even more complicated because they are having to attack several buildings with flames. Firefighters are having to look at many different areas of the city, not just one portion, not just one building on fire. And you can see how much this building is actually starting to gray up and smoke up and darken up. And that again seems to signify that we have a bigger flame and some more flames that are on our way. As far as the commute this morning, or this afternoon, here's what I can tell you. Subway service has been resumed on the A, B, C, D, E, F, J, M, L, number 5 and number 7 trains. It has not been resumed yet on the 1, 2, 3, or 9 train. Also, we can tell you that there is heightened security at Penn Station, as you can well imagine. Metro North is running out of Grand Central Station, but very limited service only. No tolls on any of the suburban railroads, so that's the good news there today. No tolls on the suburban railroads. 59th Street Bridge does have some traffic driving across it. Many of the other bridges have many people walking across it, the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges in particular. LIRR does have some trains. Port Washington branch should go to the Woodside Avenue station in Queens. Also coming out of Flatbush Avenue and Hunters Point in Brooklyn, as well as Jamaica Avenue in Queens itself. That is what we know as far as the commute goes. We're looking at the roads in New Jersey right now. They're pretty much deserted. There are some cars on the roads, but they are very light when it comes to traffic. It seems most people have headed home or to some other safe haven, someplace they feel is safe. But again, the big story, of course, is the fact that as you look here, the World Trade Centers are no longer in our picture. You cannot see the World Trade Centers anymore. They are completely collapsed. It's hard to see exactly what the scene is from our vantage point, but you can definitely see the smoke is starting to darken again. It means more things are catching on fire. For a while, we saw a lot of white steam. Now the smoke again is starting to get to be very dark. Now, if you can imagine, these firefighters have been on the scene for more than 6 hours at this point. They are not only having to battle a blaze, they're having to battle the smoke and all the debris in the ground. So it's a very physical fight as well as a very emotional fight for these firefighters, as well as the EMTs and other rescue workers on the scene. Because the smoke is so incredibly noxious and so high and going so far, it's a good idea if you're in this general area at all to please stay inside, keep your windows closed. Do not use your water. They need all the water pressure they can get at this point. They do have some unusual firefighting equipment on the ground today. The firefighter, which is a water boat. It is a firefighting boat, and basically it sucks water out of the Hudson River and takes it directly to a pumper, which relays it to another pumper, and it's called a relay pump. 11,000 gallons of water per minute. It's an amazing piece of equipment. Also on hand are volunteer tugboats piloted by volunteers who have again brought their tugboats down, which can also suck water out of the river and then have connected to different hoses in the general area and are able to then put water onto this fire without having to go into the water mains. It's hard to say. Perhaps some of the water mains may have even been damaged by this actual explosion and collapse of these buildings. But again, we have some unusual firefighting equipment in this area, which definitely the smoke is getting much thicker now. As we're looking at our window, we are hovering at about 1,600 feet, 1,500 feet. And I'm telling you, this smoke is probably 5,000 feet into the air. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And again, the smoke is getting much thicker. It seems to have rekindled. Something seems to have caught on fire, which obviously is adding a lot of fuel to this fire. And don't forget, it's not just one building that we're talking about on fire. Several buildings are on fire at this point. Many buildings have totally disappeared, not just the World Trade Center. We were looking at the World Financial Center earlier. All you can see that remains of the World Financial Center is the very front of the building. As I said before, we are the only air traffic control which is up. Air traffic control has asked us to land. We have been the only aircraft allowed for a couple hours at this point, and they have now asked us to land. So we're going to do that, and we're going to send it back to you. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Melinda, for all your
you.
great work the last number of hours. I must tell you, seeing the visuals out there, it's totally surreal. Just a week ago, on Labor Day, I was taking my cousin who's here from Ireland, first trip to New York City. We took him on the Circle Line. And as we came down the Hudson River and came around the tip of Manhattan, I was so proud to show him the Twin Towers. It is really the most beautiful sight, the lower tip of Manhattan with all those lovely skyscrapers, and just to see it today, just all gone. And he's supposed to go back in 3 days, and now we don't even know what the airport situation will be. We have Sukanya Christian now live out in Midtown to give us an update on how commuters are doing getting home and evacuating Manhattan. Sukanya.
Mary, we're going to get to that in a moment. So many thousands affected, a catastrophe that we really have no words to kind of express the sentiment. But Sidney Lipstein is here. He is one of those people who survived what happened in 1993. That so many of us witnessed. Sidney, can you put into words what happened today? Is it possible to even compare it?
No, it isn't. I mean, it was so much different and so much worse. There, when I was inside the building in '93, I mean, you felt a little bit, and then you just walked down, but you always knew you were safe. Here, I mean, there was never a moment when I felt safe. It was like awful. It was just awful.
Can you take me back to the moment that you knew something terrible was going to happen?
Well, I mean, I had just about gotten was heading towards work, and at that when the building was already on fire, but there was no indication at that time that the building would fall down. It was just we obviously saw that there was had been a tremendous explosion. The building was awful, but then standing there, all of a sudden we heard this like loud rumble, like an earthquake, and the next thing we knew, there was this huge ball of ash and soot and dust coming right down the street in a wind tunnel effect, and we turned and ran, and we got as far as we could when the thing enveloped us, and I really felt at that point that we wouldn't survive. I mean, it was like it's undescribable. It became totally black. You couldn't see a thing. You couldn't walk. You couldn't do anything. And I just grabbed the wall, and there were some people around me, and we all hugged each other and we prayed.
People are talking about how thick that smoke was and how you couldn't even breathe. Can you take us back to that moment where you were kind of enveloped in this wave of debris that was choking you and bringing you down?
Yeah, all I could think about was, I mean, I know in the Bible when it talks about the plague of darkness in Egypt, it was that and nothing could move, and that's the way it was. It just became total 100% blackness, and nobody could move, and we just stopped, and we just prayed, and people were screaming, and then finally after a while, it started to get a little lighter, and so I was able to calm some people down and say, okay, it'll pass. But it was for those maybe 5-10 minutes that it was just total blackness. I just thought the world had ended.
Can you tell me, were people helping each other? Can you tell us how people were reaching out to each other?
People were very, very helpful. On the way up here, walking afterwards, you had people with signs for free water, free bathrooms. I mean, people were very, very helpful, and it really brought out and the lack of panic, the lack of the actual calmness of people. It just struck me as the New Yorkers. They'll take anything in stride, but they were really doing the best. The best in people came out.
When you were leaving, what was it like? It seems like in Midtown, it seems very surreal that what's happening in downtown Manhattan hasn't really happened, but you saw it, you lived through it.
Yeah, the streets are completely covered with this gray ash. It looks like either a volcano hit or a nuclear explosion. I mean, everything is white. Everything is covered with soot. Buildings, people walking around with masks on their face. It is something surreal. I mean, if you go down there, it looks like a scene out of a movie of a battlefield. It looks like Armageddon. I mean, it's just it's indescribable. It's like this is nothing. I mean, people, you walk around here, it's almost like nothing happened. Down there, it's indescribable. It's just unbelievable.
Thank you so much for sharing and coming with us, joining us live, Sidney. Mary, Marvin, when you listen to testimonials like that, it really does take your breath away. It's almost undescribable what so many people have lived through today. Also, so many lives that were lost in this tragedy as well. We want to also segue and talk about the commute. There are thousands of people that are really trying to get away from New York City, trying to get home to their loved ones. And right now, though things are pretty calm on the streets, we are being told that subway lines in all 4 boroughs are running. In Manhattan, we are being told it's only the letter lines. And Lolita Lopez, another reporter who was by the 59th Street Bridge, is saying that pedestrians are being allowed to walk across the 59th Street Bridge as per the Midtown Tunnel. It is open, but apparently people have to kind of carpool. There's a certain number of people that have to be in the car to be allowed through the Midtown Tunnel and to gain access to the other boroughs. So that's really the situation here all morning long. You know, we've been seeing these dump trucks out here filled with sand. This is, to point it out to you, this is where the Israeli consulate is. And also, this is on 2nd Avenue. The next avenue, 1st Avenue, is where the UN is, and of course heightened security here. We haven't seen any F-16s pass over, but we of course are on high alert here. So that is the very latest reporting live. Back to you, Mary and Marvin.
Thank you, Sukanya. Just to update you, according to the mayor, as far as the subway lines, all 5 boroughs, the lines are working. All the letter lines are now operating in all 5 boroughs of the city.
I believe now we're going to show on the screen the airline flights that were involved today in the crashes around the country. There were 2 American Airlines flights and 2 United Airlines planes that were involved in the crashes. The American Airlines flights were carrying 156 people up there. You see the United Airlines Flight 93 was going from Newark to San Francisco. Flight 175 from Boston to LA. One of these flights crashed in western Pennsylvania. Another crashed in the Pentagon. The American Airlines flights apparently are the ones that crashed into the Twin Towers. Flight 11 from Boston to LA. Flight 77 from Washington to LA. And just in reading some of the reports from the Associated Press, one of the planes, I believe it was the United Airlines planes that crashed in Pennsylvania, a man actually got out on his cell phone to emergency personnel. He was locked in a restroom on the plane, and he screamed into the phone, "We are being hijacked, we are being hijacked," and then it just went dead. And he said before the phone went dead, "This is not a hoax, this is the real thing."
And also, as Sonia Diener told us from Washington a short time ago, one of those planes that went down in Pennsylvania, apparently, this is according to the officials talking to her in Washington, apparently it was actually destined for Camp David, the presidential retreat, but it did not get there.
And the president was notified. He was reading to school children.
The president was in Sarasota, now on the way back. He has already been on the phone with Governor Pataki and Mayor Giuliani, pledging all of his support. Military presence is in New York. We've seen some F-16s over Manhattan, and 2 warships are heading here, we're told, including the aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy.
I believe that Mayor Giuliani and Governor Pataki held a press conference. We may have shown a little bit of it before. We may have an update now on some things that they said when they held their press conference a short time ago.
Let's take a look at that video.
This is a vicious attack upon New York. It's an attack upon America. It's an attack upon the whole concept of freedom and our way of life. And we cannot let these attacks succeed.
Mr. Mayor, you were one of the first people down there. Can you describe the scene in your own words, what you saw down there?
I don't know that I'm really able to describe it. It was the most horrific scene I've ever seen in my whole life. We saw the World Trade Center in flames, a big gaping hole all the way on the top of it. We could see people jumping from the top of the building. And then we went into Barclay Street, 75 Barclay Street, I think it was, and we were there when the building collapsed. And it collapsed in part on 75 Barclay Street. So we were trapped in the building for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. The number of casualties will be more than any of us can bear, ultimately. There are a large number of firefighters and police officers who are in harm's way, and we don't know how many we've lost.
Is it an act of war in your mind?
I don't know that I want to use those words. I think the president is the one that has to respond, and I think what he has to know is that all of us in New York support him, and support him completely in the efforts that he's going to have to make over the next couple of days, week, and to make a point that people can't do this. You can't attack innocent men, women, and children.
I know the mayor is trying to be very careful in what kind of information he gives out at this point, but the Associated Press reported that a high-ranking police official with the NYPD said thousands
could be dead or injured at this point. He spoke on condition of anonymity.
Well, let's be more direct, Mary. The mayor did say, and here I quote, he said on the question of casualties, he said here, the number of casualties will be more than we can bear, ultimately. And he said a number of firefighters and police officers as well are among those casualties who, as he said, were in harm's way today. Still too early, but let's give you these other numbers. 1,500, said the mayor. 1,500 are the walking wounded. They've been taken to Liberty State Park. 600 are at local hospitals, and 150 were described as critically injured. There are 170 hospitals throughout the city. St. Vincent, he said, is taking the brunt of all the activity. Many of the injured have been taken by ferry to Newark's Penn Station and as well to Liberty State Park.
I believe now we are going to go to some tape of President Bush and some of the statements he made when he spoke to the press a short time ago.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act.
The president pledging his support to both the mayor and the governor. He is now back en route to Washington.
And when you look at the enormity of what happened today, consider that in 1993, 6 people were killed when that truck bomb went off in the garage of the World Trade Center #1. And then in Oklahoma City, 168 people killed when the truck bomb went off outside the Murrah building.
And we thought it never could happen again.
No, here we're talking thousands. And we've been showing you footage throughout the morning, throughout the afternoon of some of the scenes, the horrific scenes when this first happened just around 9 o'clock this morning. Here is a little bit of what we have on tape. Just some of the tape shot in downtown Manhattan, right near the Twin Towers before they toppled down. It looked like a ghost town with all the debris raining out of the windows, pencils, briefcases, shoes
Papers.
Belonging to the office workers.
People have described it looking like a nuclear bomb zone. It's like something we've never seen and hope never to have seen. We thought we had seen it all, Oklahoma City, with the devastation of the Murrah building, and now the World Trade Center, which was attacked in 1993 and did survive that attack, now no longer exists. It's hard to believe to say that.
And
I mean, we've worked in this city all our lives and been here, and to say the World Trade Center is not there, it's just incomprehensible.
And they didn't bring it down the last time, but they certainly brought it down this time. Not 1, but 2 towers. And witnesses reported seeing people jumping from the top floors of the towers, a man and a woman holding hands, jumping from around the 82nd floor. The survivors have gone to hospitals all around the tri-state area. Glenn Thompson, we understand, is standing by live now at Bellevue Hospital at the trauma center there. Glenn.
Well, Mary, the hospital remains in full emergency status right now. Now, all of the staff here has been called in. Doctors and nurses are going to be sleeping here tonight. Cots have been set up and meals are being prepared. 140 victims total have been brought here. 2 of them are DOA. Now, hundreds of people have come here to give blood. Many of them are tourists. And here's what some of them have to say. Okay, now so many people have come here to give blood today. We're told that the hospital has been overloaded. I believe, though, we have some tape here, some interviews with some of the people who have come to donate blood. Do we have that tape? Okay, we apologize for that. Now, some of the people have been, the lines are so long here to give blood that some of the people have decided to go home, and they're going to come back again tonight to try again to help out.
You know,
thank you. We'll check in with you later.
We saw Police Commissioner Bernard Carrick standing there with the mayor and the governor and the fire commissioner at the press conference just a short while ago. A couple of nights ago, the commissioner was celebrating his 46th birthday. He's been commissioner for just over a year now. And I was saying to his wife at the time, you know, he's really been fortunate. There has not been any major incident involving terrorism like with other commissioners. And I also pointed out, of course, we had the incident in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, with the officers drinking and the family was killed. And then 2 days after this party to have something like this happen, it's just
very interesting.
mind-boggling.
Also, he had just returned. I was speaking to his wife also at that function, and she, of course, was concerned. It was just about 2 weeks ago he had gone to Israel on a visit there, and of course there's the concern with all the violence in the Middle East. And let me say, mentioning the Middle East, while we're all in mourning and in state of shock here, there is, believe it or not, celebration along the West Bank. Palestinians shouting and chanting today, "God is great," and applauding this act, this dastardly act of terrorism on our own soil.
And of course, New York City is not the only area of the country under high alert now. So is Washington, D.C., where the Pentagon was attacked. Sonia Diener joins us live now from Washington with the latest. Sonia.
Good afternoon. Let me give you the latest on President Bush. We've been wondering when he's going to be returning to Washington and the White House. The latest is that he is headed to or has already arrived at Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. According to a White House spokesperson, the president wants to return to Washington as quickly as possible. He arrived in Nebraska as a security precaution, says the spokesperson, and he will convene a meeting of the National Security Council via teleconference from that Air Force Base. Again, that was a quote from a White House spokesperson. The president started his day in Sarasota, Florida. He then flew to Barksdale Air Force Base near Shreveport, Louisiana, and he had this to say. It's been about 3 hours ago. Here's a bit of his statement.
Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts.
Again, President Bush from Barksdale Air Force Base. You should be looking at a picture of the Pentagon. That was earlier today. Fires burning there at the Pentagon. A commercial plane, an apparently hijacked commercial plane, flew into the side of the Pentagon about 10 o'clock Eastern time this morning. It started a huge fire. There were some secondary explosions. Part of the building then collapsed. All 24,000 employees of the Pentagon were evacuated. We understand that at least 50 people have been hurt, but we have still received no official word on fatalities. And some of those fires still burning, but they are just about under control. According to a Pentagon spokesperson, many people in that building felt a thud. Some witnesses said the whole building shook. And remember, the Pentagon is just a huge, huge structure. Some witnesses describing the scene as people screaming and pandemonium. I don't know if we still have that live picture to show you of this, a huge chunk of one of the sides of the Pentagon taken out. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, we understand, is still at the Pentagon. Right after the explosion happened, or the crash happened, he reportedly was helping get people out of the area onto stretchers and to the hospital. And then he went to what's called the National Military Command Center in the Pentagon, a secure area. So that's the scene at the Pentagon. Here in Washington, all major federal buildings have been closed, including the White House, Treasury Department, the State Department, Justice Department, the U.S. Capitol, the Supreme Court. Also, museums, monuments are closed in the district. Most schools are closed. Many roads are closed. People have been clearing out of this city, and right now it's virtually deserted. That is the latest. Live from Washington. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that report, Sonia. We're joined now by one of our videographers who was in Lower Manhattan just as the towers, the Twin Towers, were coming down. Jonathan Fine, you can see
Still have the soot on you.
all over you.
Hey, Marvin and Mary.
I know you're usually on the other side of the camera, but describe for us, first of all, how you got away from it all.
The police had started to move us out of the triage area. The amount of people started to build that they were triaging out in front of the World Trade Center, and they started to move us back and were asking us to move back to Broadway. So I began to move back to Broadway, and I heard what I thought was a third plane, but the reality was the building crumbling into itself. And as that happened, I turned to look, and there was a wall of smoke and soot and whatever, just like an avalanche, coming at me. And it was just a matter of trying to keep in front of it and get away from it, and you can't outrun an avalanche, and I couldn't outrun it. There was a woman with me, and I said, let's hit this vestibule. We ducked into a vestibule, wanted to be, in case things were coming down, I wanted something over my head. We ducked into the vestibule. I pulled my shirt over my head. I told her to cover her nose and mouth. We were in total darkness. It was total darkness. This is nothing. It was total darkness. After a few minutes, I told her I wasn't staying. Please come with me. I turned the camera light on and began to baby step my way down the street, which couldn't see anything. I building on my elbow and just keep going. And I lost her. She went somewhere. But another hand came on my shoulder, and the guy said, let's just keep going. So we just kept walking, and I found a city bus. And we opened the doors and popped into the city bus and closed. Nobody on it. We closed the doors, turned the headlights on, turned the marker lights on, started honking the horn, and some more people came. And
Jonathan, do you think by ducking into the vestibule you saved your life?
I think by being married, by moving to begin with, and having that motion, being able to move, I can't imagine what it would have been like to be out on the street the whole time.
Here's your video.
Here's some of the video. That's
this is
another
Tony.
cameraman.
This may be Tony's video.
But he was down there with you, and that's the second plane hitting the Twin Towers, and you were right there when that happened.
Phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Keith Lopez's video is tremendous also. This is, I believe, is Tony's video.
People just falling to the street from the reverberation of the explosion.
This was tremendous. This was a horror.
Trying to get out of buildings, just seeking anywhere to go. Did you see people stuck at all, Jonathan, that could not get out of the Trade Center or another building?
I saw people coming down. They went out the windows.
You saw people coming out the windows?
Yeah, from above, seemed to be from above the fire. And I guess there was nothing else they could do. And they came out and tumbled. I mean.
And we're trained to be immune to almost anything, and you can't be immune to something like this. This is the debris.
This is the debris coming down. I'm sure you'll find my tape somewhere, maybe see the stuff when I was running.
Okay, we're going to go, Jonathan, we're going to get back to you later. We're glad you're okay, but we have Karen Hughes speaking. She's with the president. Let's hear what Karen Hughes has to say.
So diligently to respond and try to help the victims of these terrible attacks. President Bush has committed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to identify and bring to swift justice those responsible for these despicable attacks. The Department of Justice is setting up a hotline for families who fear that their relatives may have been victims of one of these attacks, and we will be announcing that telephone number shortly. Our fellow citizens and our freedom came under attack today, and no one should doubt America's resolve. President Bush and all our country's leaders thank the many Americans who are helping with rescue and relief efforts. We ask our fellow Americans for your prayers for the victims, for their families, for the rescue workers, and for our country. Thank you all very much, and we will continue to update you as information is available and confirmed.
Karen, how long will the president stay in Nebraska?
Return to the White House.
Will he go back to Washington, Karen? Will he address the nation?
Can I say it?
Karen Hughes, senior White House advisor, speaking. The president is en route back to the White House right now. We were talking just a few moments ago with our videographer, Jonathan Fine, who fortunately is fine. He ran as one of the Twin Towers was coming down, and he did seek refuge. still covered with soot. You were describing before we went to Karen Hughes the situation down there and your plight.
You described the people actually jumping from the building. Can you tell us a little bit more?
I guess people from above the fire, where the flames were, just felt that there was no other way out, and they came tumbling down.
Any word about the woman with whom you sought refuge? You said you lost touch of her.
No, I lost touch with her. Moving. I wasn't going to stay there. I had a mouthful of whatever this stuff was. It was turning to plaster, even though I had my shirt over my head. I wasn't going to stay. Turned my camera light on. I crawled. It's Keith's video. Unbelievable. I crawled slowly along the buildings. And then another hand came on my shoulder out of nowhere. And this is in the pitch darkness of this combination of soot and smoke. And that's the first time I really saw it come down. And this hand came on my shoulder, and he just said, let's just keep going. Let's keep going. And we kept going and wandered our way down to a side street. And there was a city bus that we pried the door open and got ourselves in and pulled the door shut. And that allowed us to be out of the air and the soot and the garbage that was flying around. And once it got lighter, you could begin to see as the soot calmed down. That's when I left again and started actually looking for our vehicle, the truck. And there was another rumbling, and
All right. Jonathan, we understand Mayor Giuliani is about to speak. We're going to go directly to Mayor Giuliani right now.
A lot of the people that are there.
Okay, Heidi.
They're not all there. All of our police and firefighters are not there. We have a lot of police and firefighters. Bernie, do you want to explain where the police and firefighters are?
No, we don't.
We do not, and we're not going to put one out until much later, after we get a better sense of the numbers we're talking about.
The police and the police deployment is, primary focus is down in southern Manhattan in the rescue effort, but we're tending to our policing needs all over the city. We, as the mayor said earlier, we're getting assistance from the governor and the National Guard. About 200 National Guardsmen about 2 hours ago, about an hour ago, I guess. There'll be another about 1,500 sometime this evening to come in to help us. And we're going to continue on the rescue efforts, but policing will go on in the rest of the city as usual.
State of alert for other possible actions. How is that going?
Obviously, we're in a high state of alert. We're looking at other government buildings, securing those buildings, securing other areas in the city. Right now, our primary focus and our efforts are in southern Manhattan.
One more, please.
I don't think anybody. The mayor and I were there this morning. I was there when the second plane hit the building. I was right underneath the building. I don't think anybody would have imagined that one of those airliners would have hit the building like that. Nobody in the right mind would have thought that would happen. So, and in this circumstance, it was something we couldn't avoid. We couldn't have stopped, even if we tried.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've been listening to Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
That was the press conference, an update from Mayor Giuliani and Police Commissioner Bernard Carrick. Commissioner Carrick said he himself was under the Twin Towers when the second airliner exploded into the tower this morning about 9:15 or so, before the two towers came down. I'm joined again by Jim Watkins, my colleague here, who's been on all morning watching the situation with us.
The thing that I think people are wondering about so much, Mary, and the thing that of course is going to be the next tragic step in this story, is beginning to get some idea of what the death toll is. We still know, despite our hours of coverage, I think going 5 or 6 hours now, we still know very little about what really is taking place at Ground Zero in the places where the buildings have collapsed, where the rubble is collected right now. We can only guess how many victims are in there, what type of search efforts are going on at this moment.
Just to recap on the flights that were involved, there were 2 American airline flights, 156 people in total on the 2 flights that hit the Twin Towers and exploded. And then there were 2 other flights involved today in the nation, 2 United Airlines flights with a total of 110 people on board. One crashed in western Pennsylvania, another hit the Pentagon. And I know that they have been putting out phone numbers. It's so hard, though, to even use a phone because a lot of the cell phones aren't working. And I know emergency personnel need the cell phones just to communicate with each other.
Right, as the point's been made many times today, that many of the antenna for cell phone companies that cover a large portion of the northeast part of the United States were on the World Trade Center. So this has caused serious damage to communication efforts in the Northeast as well. What we should mention as we talk about the flights and the apparently remarkably coordinated effort that these terrorists made, there has still been no claim of responsibility.
Although we do have a recap now of the events of this morning, which began around 9 o'clock when people were just flooding into the Twin Towers for work.
The first plane hit right as the workday began for 50,000 people in the Twin Towers, right before 9 a.m.
There are flames. There is a massive fire here.
Our WB11 cameraman was underneath the skyscrapers 18 minutes later when the second jetliner aimed for a second tower.
I mean, we have a huge hole. We have a lot of dead American people up here, and we need answers.
Some witnesses saw bodies falling out of the towers. Another reported a man and woman holding hands, jumping together from somewhere near the 80th floor.
I was supposed to be on the 82nd floor for a 9 o'clock meeting, and I was about 10 minutes late to get there. And they're telling me now that planes were going through the 82nd floor area. So I guess I was kind of covered by somebody up above.
As the debris rained down, blowing shoes, briefcases, pencils, and other articles from people's desks, the blinding smoke enveloped most of Lower Manhattan's world-famous skyline. Within an hour, the towers were falling down.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
At St. Vincent's Hospital, stretchers lined the streets. Doctors and nurses stood by with IV bottles as ambulance after ambulance arrived, carrying survivors clearly still in shock. Even the city's emergency medical workers themselves among the victims, firefighters and police officers. One couple answered the call for blood donations.
I saw the second tower come down. I saw more than I ever wanted to see in one day.
And it was enough to bring you down here to help. What do you hope to do here?
There's nothing else we can do, but give blood is something we can do, and I hope everybody who can do that will do that.
All right, Jim Watkins is joined now by Kaidi Tong. Once again here, we want to welcome the other Tribune stations across the country now joining our coverage of this terrible event today. Let's sum up very quickly for those people across the country and those of you in New York who might be just joining us what happened. What you're seeing there is evidence of the first airplane which crashed into the World Trade Center, Tower number 2 today. Keep watching, and what you'll see happened about 25 minutes later, around 9:15, a second plane coming up, slamming into tower number 1. Debris, fire, chaos on the streets below. A half hour later to 40 minutes later, both of the World Trade Center towers were in rubble. They have been destroyed. The World Trade Center, the ultimate landmark of Lower Manhattan and of New York City and of America's financial might, has been leveled because of some remarkably coordinated, apparently terrorist attacks. 4 planes hijacked, 2 of them slammed into the World Trade Center, another one crashed north of Pittsburgh, another one hit the Pentagon.
We're going to go back out to the street now, and to Lolita Lopez, who's standing by at the 59th Street Bridge. Lolita.
All right, here at the 59th Street Bridge, people are still trying to get across, making their way into Queens. Take a look over my left shoulder. You will see as the people, dozens, hundreds in fact, are moving across, trying to make their ways home to their loved ones. It's part of an evacuation of sorts, people trying to leave their work, trying to get home since this morning's incident. Now, places like this have been packed. All of these transportation hubs, including the Midtown Tunnel, another way to get across into Queens, only if your cars are full and packed with people. But also another way of getting somewhere, either uptown or at least around the city, is through Grand Central using Metro North. There we found many people, some survivors of the incident this morning, who had trekked their way from downtown, from the World Trade Center area, trying to get to Grand Central and then making it home. Here are their responses.
I was in World Trade too. I work for Verizon. 12th floor, we walked down, and it was, I don't want to talk about it. It's pretty bad.
Where are you trying to go?
I wanted to get to my daughter who was at Goldman Sachs, and I'm with this group from Goldman Sachs, and we all walked from the World Trade, and we're headed up to, we're trying to get home.
It lasted a couple of minutes, but it felt like an eternity. I mean, it was all in your throat, it was everywhere.
So you couldn't breathe, it was...
No, you couldn't breathe, you couldn't see.
All right, so back here on the 59th Street Bridge, as we said, people trying to get across. It's one of the only ways people can get back into Queens. Take you right over again. Cars on one side are being able to go through that as people are walking on the other side trying to get home. It's about the same way it's going to be through the rest of the evening as people head out of Manhattan and back into home, and until subways are reopened here in Manhattan. We're live at the 59th Street Bridge. I'm Lolita Lopez. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Lolita. We're going to give you an update on the subway and schedules and what's going on with the bridges and the tunnels in just a moment. We want to get the up to the minute information on that.
Some subways are running again, apparently.
And one of the reasons you may notice that we're not really talking back to our reporters the way we normally would and getting getting their rundown on what's going on is because our communications with most of them have been knocked out by the fact that their communication devices are on the World Trade Center.
Numerous antennas on the World Trade Center. In fact, all the TV stations here in New York but one had personnel full-time there at the top of the World Trade Center. And of course, one of our concerns here in the station, as it is at all the other stations, is the status of those people up there right now. But just like everybody else who's wondering what happened, we are just going to have to wait and see. Do we have Brett Schundler on the line?
I think we're going to go to Larry Hoff
right
now.
Okay, take it away.
Another one of our reporters on the street. Larry, what's going on?
Well, the flow continues. The mass of people still coming out of the financial districts, but the plume of smoke has died down considerably from earlier. You can see the sun still trying to peek through there. Some rescue workers making their way out of there, but people are still working seriously down where the trade towers once stood. Can I help you?
You want some great video from on top of what's left?
Now, who are you with?
I'm with Hofstra University.
No. I thought you were one of the. You look like you got a fire.
Excellent video.
We're not buying that right now. Everybody's got a lot of video. I thought he was a rescue worker. Sorry about that. We're live right now. We're fine. So let me just go on and give you kind of a status report. Again, we have had a continual flow of people coming out of this area all day long trying to make their way. No public transportation other than some buses starting to line up and they're heading over to Brooklyn. The crowd's going over the Brooklyn Bridge has receded dramatically there too. And you can also see that the smoke and ash has cleared up through the alleyways of the financial district. We're looking down Center Street right now. So, it is I guess you call it just the grind now. The work going on over there. We heard from earlier eyewitnesses that some fires are still burning down there. And I imagine you guys are more updated on it than we are around here. We just get those firsthand accounts of people coming out here that they're working at ground zero right now, but getting most of the people that are finishing up their day and sending them on home. And they've been kind of sending them on home in waves today. So it is kind of a matter of now people getting on out of here. We're not really seeing those soot-covered victims like we did earlier today. I think those people, the very traumatized ones, have made their way out of the area. And these are the people that are coming out of buildings way on the outskirts of what occurred today. So I'll send it on back to you all right now.
So much. We actually have on the phone right now former Jersey City Mayor Brett Schundler, who happens to be in Israel. He is the New Jersey's Republican candidate for governor, as you might recall, who went into Israel and to Jerusalem to look at the pizzeria where a Palestinian suicide bomber killed 15 Israelis just last month. He is on the phone with us right now. Can you hear me all right, Mr. Schundler?
Yes, I can.
Tell me what the situation is right there. When did you hear about this? What were you doing?
Well, we were in a bus actually headed out to the Gaza Strip area. The area, kibbutz that we visited earlier today actually, has been suffering from mortar fire in some of these evenings and is again actually tonight. The reason we are here is to be in solidarity with Israel as it's been suffering these attacks and to support it. But it's just incredible to be over here and then to be seeing this happening in New York. I think most of us are just shocked.
Well, Mr. Schindler, of course, the World Trade Center in some respects forms the front yard of Jersey City.
It certainly does.
The most outstanding views of Lower Manhattan to be had from New Jersey come from the city of which you were mayor until just a couple of months ago. What were your thoughts when you heard this unbelievable news?
Right, we just can't believe it. I mean, I just cannot believe it. I don't think anybody can. You know, when the attack on the World Trade Center happened in '93, we sent our emergency personnel over there, and I hope that all of New Jersey's municipalities, I'm sure their personnel will be needed, their police and fire assistants, even public works assistants, to ultimately help clear out the debris. And I hope people in New Jersey will also give blood, because I'm sure that will be needed in area hospitals. Anything that our municipalities can do, as well as our state, we should be willing to do, and to help those in New York. So many people hurt, so much destruction.
Mr. Schindler, could you describe for us where you are right now, what time it is there, and what the reaction has been of the people who are watching this with you?
Well, I'm at the King David Hotel right now. It's about 11:15 in the evening, and people are stunned. It's something people just can't believe, but it also, I think, makes us all feel that the whole world is a much smaller place right now. Israel has, been suffering attacks, as you know, but now I think you feel that the entire world feels like it's under attack. And I think there's a sense that what the United States and other nations must do is band together, not only get the individuals responsible here, but to root out the support system for terrorism. Because at the end of the day, the individuals were just soldiers. We have to go after the general and the support system that has allowed this to happen.
Are you noticing any specific security steps being taken in Israel? Of course, the events that have taken here and what's been going on in Israel so inextricably tied.
Well, Israel has been under some pretty strict security for some time, and I think one thing that is important is to know is that even though there have been terrorist acts here, and even though there has been shelling along the border and sniper fire, the reality is that Israel is if you're in the body of Israel, it's very safe. I think one thing that American Jews and others who would like to support Israel can do is they can come here. They shouldn't be afraid. They can come here and by being here show their solidarity for Israel. But I do believe that right now all of us are in the same boat with regard to the need to fight back and root out this terrorist threat to all of the world. It's not obviously just the United States and Israel. You saw in all throughout Europe concerns where they had to close down their skies, and we just can't allow the world to be held hostage in this way.
You are the Republican candidate for governor in New Jersey, and although it may seem far-fetched, can you look at the campaign to be the chief executive of New Jersey and see what has happened here today as being an issue, being something important that will now have to become a part of this campaign?
Well, I think I haven't even had enough time to think about that. It's almost right now. It's almost more just of a sister city situation. Again, New York is our next door neighbor, and it's unfathomable to me to imagine this happening. My heart goes out to every family in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, all of those who have lost their lives, and all those who, it'll be a long time, I think, before you see any kind of return to normality here.
Mr. Schindler, you can hear the emotion and the despair in your voice, and I just wanted to say, are you planning to come back to the States now? Earlier, are you changing your plans, or what are you planning to do now?
Well, we were planning to return tomorrow already, and as I understand it, there will be no flights in until tomorrow midday. So I'll be trying to get back as soon as I can.
It will be a different world you're coming back to, Mr. Schindler.
It is a different world. It's a different world for all of us, not just myself, anybody else who's a candidate. It's a different world for all of us now.
We thank you for joining us from Israel, former Jersey City Mayor, current GOP gubernatorial candidate in New Jersey, Brett Shundler. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, maybe we should right now update some of the subway services so people are, it's changing even as we speak. At this time, as far as we know, this is accurate, most subway service has resumed in New York City. Service has resumed on all the letter lines, A, B, C, D, E, F, J, M, L, and number 5 and 7 lines. Those are the first number lines that have been reestablished. However, IRT service on the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9 lines still out because of power problems. The Long Island Railroad has limited service right now at Penn Station to Long Island to get people out of New York City. And Metro North says it has limited service right now, leaving Grand Central Station to the northern suburbs. No fares are being collected on these suburban railroads. And for more information about roads and what's happening specifically in New Jersey right now, we're going to go to Vanessa Tyler at the Jersey Bureau. Vanessa.
Well, when those towers burned and crumbled in Manhattan, it was felt nationwide and certainly across the Hudson here in New Jersey. New Jersey is also in a state of emergency, as it was just announced by the acting governor, Don DeFrancesco. Now, we spent the morning gathering reaction on this side of the river. People stunned, looking to the sky at the billowing smoke where there once stood 2 towers. Manhattan locked down. All along the New Jersey Turnpike, cars stopped, people stared.
I can't get back into Manhattan because they said the bridge is closed and the tunnel.
If you are in New Jersey, you're in. No way into the city. Our region is under siege and police are on full alert. Newark International Airport grounded, everything canceled, nothing moving in or out. Reports are one of the hijacked planes that crashed elsewhere in the country may have been from here. To avoid any more stolen planes and flying death, nothing is airborne.
They shut it down just as we were getting ready to board.
I'm trying to get through to England to let my family know that we're all right.
People wandering, not knowing where to go, what to do.
Basically, the airlines are hooking them up with local hotels around here, and thus we're basically recommending them to the hotels around here if they have no place else to go. And they're booked up. I don't know what we're going to do.
People in their offices in New Jersey are standing around radios, listening to the war being waged on their world.
This is an absolute tragedy. It's just boggling. I mean, it's absolutely boggling that such a thing could happen here.
Now, Jim Cotty, that last gentleman, like many people here in New Jersey, has friends who used to work there in the Twin Towers. Now, he talked with his friend after the first plane went into the tower, but certainly not after the second. So he has no idea the status of his friends, like many people in our region. In many spots in New Jersey, there is a clear shot of the Twin Towers and the Manhattan skyline, a view that certainly has changed dramatically after this morning. We're reporting live from the New Jersey Bureau. Vanessa Tyler, WB11 News at 10. Back to you guys.
Okay. Vanessa, thank you. I'm sure you and I and everybody out there right now sitting there feeling helpless and wondering what in the world we can do.
What we can do, and not only that, but what really is the result of all this destruction and carnage. The thing that I think everybody is trying to find out the most right now is who is hurt, who has lost their lives.
The rescue effort and try to save as many lives as possible.
What types of casualties we're talking about. We have brought you reports from Bellevue Hospital. We brought you reports from St. Vincent's Hospital as well, where in both places, I believe in excess of 100 people, many of them critically injured, are being brought in for whatever kinds of life-saving procedures they need. Other hospitals all around the area also taking some of these ambulances, including the Nassau County Medical Center, and that is where our Joe Chaffee, who is a resident of Long Island, is standing by on the phone. Joe, are they bringing people there?
Jim, they're waiting for the arrival of 8 burn victims that have been brought by ferry to Glen Cove, and then are being transported by ambulance from the Glen Cove ferry to the Nassau University Medical Center. The burn unit here is equipped to handle these types of situations, but security here is extremely tight. There's a bomb squad, the Nassau County operations that handles bombs and other security units of this matter here. It's very odd to come into a situation. You're coming into a hospital where you see a policeman standing there with a machine gun, but the security, understandably, very tight. One of the things, a lot of people have come to Nassau University Medical Center to give blood, but the response for blood giving has been so enormous that they are now actually turning people away. The blood center here is full to capacity, at least for now, so they are not taking any more people with respect to blood donors. We thought a little while ago, because we did hear the turns of the sirens, that perhaps some of the burn victims were arriving. However, that was not the case. So we continue to wait here. We have an unconfirmed report that there may be a train that is going to be coming in on the LIRR tracks, coming in with burn victims later on from the World Trade Center area. Again, this is unconfirmed, but we're trying to get confirmation on that. And if we get any more information on that specific, we'll pass it along.
Today, Mayor Giuliani was praising St. Vincent's Hospital. He said even before the first victim showed up there, and they were overwhelmed, the doctors and the nurses were on the sidewalk. They were waiting for them. They were at the height of alertness and readiness. What is the situation like in terms of the hospital staff there? Can Joe hear me?
Did we lose Joe?
I'm sorry. I think maybe we lost Joe.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Okay, we'll try to get him later. We're having problems.
Once again, to recap what he was doing, and this is interesting, if for no other reason than it shows the degree to which the impact is being felt. We're leaving New York City here. We're going out to the Nassau University Medical Center, where they have an outstanding burn unit, and apparently some of the people who were the worst burned, of which there were many, from what we hear, are being taken by ferry to Glen Cove. And then brought by ambulance to the hospital, and perhaps, and this is something that really brings a wartime image to mind: the notion of a train full of injured having to be used to simply get the people who are injured to places where they can get care.
And the ambulances, apparently, are there so many of them being used that they were having private cars pick up the injured and take them to the hospital as well. We're going to go now to Bellevue Hospital and get an update on what's happening there.
Glenn Thompson. Glenn?
Barely. Can you hear it?
All right, Glenn is getting wired up there with our chief photographer, Tom Cook. Obviously, and I'm sure you folks fully understand that a lot of times it's not going to be the prettiest thing as we go around from site to site right here, but I know you don't have a problem with that. So we're going to go back to Glenn in just a moment as soon as we get him all wired and ready to go. Let's mention one more time, Kaidi, because I think it's important to a lot of people. I live up on the Upper West Side. My wife told me just a little while ago on the phone that walking up Central Park West, streams and streams and streams of people trying to get back to the Bronx, and to Harlem, and to Washington Heights,
and to get out of Manhattan.
Upper Manhattan and beyond, literally going on foot. They might have a little bit better situation right now because we do have some subway lines working again. The A, B, C, D, E, F, J, M, L lines, as well as the number 5 and 7 lines. Others are still down, but there is some limited subway service back in action right now.
What I'm looking for right now, which I have just a pile of papers here, are the numbers for the airlines. Okay, we're going to do that later. First now, Glenn is ready for us, and let's go to Glenn Thompson, who's standing by at Bellevue. Glenn.
Okay, well, Kaidi, Bellevue Hospital remains in emergency status right now. Now, all of the staff here has been called in to work tonight. Doctors and nurses are planning on sleeping here tonight. Cots have been set up in the hospital and meals are prepared. The latest numbers we have, 140 victims total brought here. 2 of them are DOA. Hundreds of people coming here this afternoon to give blood. Are we hearing that sound? Go. We apologize. Apparently, again, we're having some audio problems with that tape. Now, the hospital has been asking people to come down here to give blood, but apparently at this point, there are so many people responding to this, they're saying maybe they should hold off to tomorrow or even later in the week. It looks like at this point, the need isn't as great as it was earlier. We're live at Bellevue. I'm Glenn Thompson. Let's go back to you guys in the studio.
To hear is clearly people are trying to respond, trying to do something to feel useful, to be helpful. There are some things you can do to help. If you live in that area, don't use your water unless it's absolutely necessary. The firefighters are down there. They need all the water pressure they can get. And
we're going to get the airline flight numbers now of the planes that were affected by this today. The 4 planes that were hijacked. Are we going to put those up on the screen so we can see it? All right, well, let me just read them off to you. There we go. We're going to put up the hotlines first in case there are people that need information about the people on board these planes. American Airlines, 1-800-245-0999. There were 2 United flights also hijacked and crashed today. 1-800-932-8555 is the number for United Airlines.
Okay, let's go now to Larry Hoff. Larry, what's going on at City Hall?
Well, you guys, honestly, everybody comes up and asks about city briefings and things like that. We really don't see that activity here. We see all the people coming out from the financial district. What a difference, you know, from earlier today. Obviously, the smoke and dust has died down dramatically. We still have that billowing plume coming out of the trade towers, well, where they once stood, and blocking out the sun here, but it has quieted down considerably, and it has remained really quite calm, if we might even call it numb, all day long here. The people walking on through. This is turning more into the curiosity time. A lot of people with the cameras coming down here, but under strict control. Right around here, yeah, you can wander around, you know, in the dust and the ash, but you get down on Center and Broadway and they'll cut you off immediately. You know, we've seen the National Guard in here, all your fire and police down there, the rescue efforts going in here. We don't see ambulances coming out. We've seen them coming in throughout the early part of the day, but we have not seen them come back out. We have seen a number of like steel workers and firefighters and such going in there to do some of the cleanup crew, but we hear, and you probably know better, that there's still a fire burning around that immediate ground zero area, so they're not really going in there with that cleanup effort as it stands right now. Buses are starting to gather. Swing on over here. The people earlier paraded across the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was a giant exodus into Brooklyn. Now the mass transit is coming into play here. So people, instead of having to hike all the way up the island, now have the option of going to Brooklyn with mass transit. We're hearing, you guys know this, about the trains are starting to run. We hear them rumbling underneath us now. So I'll send it back. I really don't have the stories that I had earlier today because I think this is a different group of people, you know, coming out from the area, not as traumatized and not experiencing the same things as the ones we heard earlier, like Lincoln and some of the others that were right there when it happened. So I'll send it back to you.
Okay, Larry. Well, one of the things, of course, that a storyline that does affect almost everybody is simply how we're going to get around Manhattan, how life is sort of going to go on in the hour-by-hour way that we live our lives. Our reporter Jill Conway joins us now. She's been out there in the field seeing some of what's happening. Tell us what you found.
Well, actually, we were coming into the city. I live out in Long Island. We're trying to get in. We left maybe around, I don't know, 12:30. It took us about 3 hours, I would say, to get in. Now, just to give you an idea, the LIE shut down. Northern States shut down, all heading westbound. There were checkpoints at every ramp. You had to show ID, you had to tell them something. I'm with the press, I got to get in there. They said, hey, you can't get in, this is shut down, I don't know how you're going to do it. We had to drive, in every type, down every street, every type of location. It was unbelievable trying to get in here.
What's happening at the Midtown Tunnel?
We couldn't get in there. We were turned away. We had to try to go to the Queensboro Bridge. We eventually got there. We had to get out of the car and walk, though. So we had to walk across the Queensboro Bridge. It took a while.
So were there abandoned cars? People just leaving their cars and then walking, or where were they leaving the cars?
There was many cars just pulled over.
There's the Queensboro. There's a look at the Queensboro Bridge now.
Yeah. So what you can see is those people. Obviously, I can't tell which direction that is, but.
We're looking towards Queens.
Okay, looking towards Queens. So at one point there were thousands of people crossing that bridge heading into Queens from Manhattan. We were the only ones heading into Manhattan. It was kind of a surreal experience, as we were just talking about it, kind of looking over. You can see where the smoke was and where the Twin Towers used to be. And it is really an eerie feeling.
And you could see all the people on the side walking, so many pedestrians now walking across the bridge.
And that's what we were doing, and it was nearly impossible to get into the city.
Well, I think one of the important things that we can take away from your report here is for people living in Long Island, Nassau County, who may be thinking that let's lay low for a few hours and then try to head into the city if we have business there. I think just don't.
I wouldn't even risk it. No.
When you say there were checkpoints, what was happening exactly at the checkpoints?
Okay. Well, we started. We tried to get on the LIE and it was just shut down. Police officers were there. Their cars, sirens, everything going. Not sirens, but their lights were going. We tried to get through. They either said no, you can't go through this way. Emergency vehicles only. So I know. My husband works out on Long Island. A lot of the police officers were being called in from there to come into the city. I know a lot of firefighters, hundreds were being told to come into the city to help out.
I think one other thing we should mention, Heidi, and this is another report that comes from my wife
Yes.
up on the Upper West Side. Of course, we're all getting little tidbits of information
right.
from our loved ones that were, as you mentioned, talking
Everyone's
to your husband a while
affected
ago.
by this.
She went to the grocery store in our neighborhood, 94th and Columbus, and found virtual panic buying underway. Concerns, people were shouting outside, they're going to get the reservoir next, they're going to get the reservoir next, and they were buying every bit of bottled water inside the store. So we haven't heard much about that today, but apparently just among people who were many miles away from ground zero, taking this very hard.
And this is exactly what Mayor Giuliani and Governor Pataki are trying to avoid. They've been preaching calm, calm.
Right.
Let's not let this affect the way we live, and let us not be afraid. Let us move forward to it. But of course, you can certainly understand the reason people would be panicked.
Right. This
after
is,
seeing the
we've been using the expression
right
off
now.
the charts all day long, and there's really people have no background for this. We don't have anything to compare it to.
Did you talk to some of the people as you were coming across when you started walking? Were you talking to some of the people you were walking with, and what was their demeanor?
Well, actually, they did seem quite calm, quite relaxed. They're just coming from Manhattan. It was kind of odd because we're heading into Manhattan. They're all coming out, trying in any way to get over the bridges and the tunnels. And of course, most of those arteries are closed. So I don't think many people know what to do. As we had said, we're talking to our brothers and sisters and whatnot. My sister works in the city, and she said, I don't know how I'm going to get home.
And we're thinking about people who are able-bodied like you.
Sure.
What about the elderly and small children who
Even
now have
women,
no way of
pregnant
getting
women,
home?
right?
Exactly.
And they were all walking across the bridge. I mean, and that's, I don't know how the distance, but it's a good mile, 2 miles, and
A lot of people are going to be walking today a lot more than
there
they
again,
have before.
we see this shot over and over. It is just does not fail to boggle the mind.
I don't think it ever will.
And I don't think this image will ever be erased from our minds.
As long as we're talking about transportation issues, we do want to mention that the Holland and Lincoln tunnels remain closed in both directions at this hour. However, the George Washington Bridge's upper level is open out of New York. Staten Island bridges are open into New Jersey. None of the crossings back into New York are open, as we've been talking about at this hour, unless you care to go by foot.
And Jill, if I could just interject at this point, we want to talk to some of the parents out there who may be concerned about their kids. Many of the schools will be closed tomorrow. The New York Archdiocese says all its schools are being closed tomorrow. Spokesman Joseph Zwilling says the schools outside of Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island will, however, reopen on Thursday. I guess you should call, if you can get through, your individual schools and see what the situation is. But I can assure you that my son, who goes to school in that area, is not going to go to school tomorrow.
In fact, your son's school is right over there on the right side.
Yes,
of
it
that
is.
picture,
And believe
barely
me,
outside the
my
scope of
heart
the
was in my
snow.
mouth early this morning until I heard from him, and he's fine.
One interesting note here, Heidi, something that those of you who have been following us throughout the day, we've all been a little bit puzzled about. The plane crash in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Why in the world would one of these planes have deliberately crashed in Pennsylvania? Well, a Virginia congressman, Representative James Moran, said the intended target of that plane that crashed in Pennsylvania was apparently Camp David, the presidential retreat in Maryland. The crash site is just 85 miles northwest of there. Moran said that after attending a briefing in Washington this morning, so we, I think, can assume that that comes from some pretty high sources right there. It appears as if the presidential retreat might also have been a target of these terrorists.
We heard a report right before we went on the air again about where President Bush is being guarded. Is that right? He was in
Sarasota, Florida when all this
Right.
began. That's where he got word. They took him to Louisiana after that. And we sort of thought that he was getting on board a plane and was coming back to Washington.
That's what we thought, but instead,
it is
I guess
such a
Air Force
high-level
One.
alert. They've taken him to a military base near Omaha, Nebraska.
And okay, we're going to go now to Mary Murphy, who has a recap for us. Mary, are you there live, or is this on tape? This is on tape.
Here's Mary.
The first plane hit right as the workday began for 50,000 people in the Twin Towers, right before 9 a.m.
There are flames. There is a massive fire here.
Our WB11 cameraman was underneath the skyscrapers 18 minutes later when the second jetliner aimed for a second tower.
I mean,
mean, we have a huge hole. We have a lot of dead American people up here, and we need answers.
Some witnesses saw bodies falling out of the towers. Another reported a man and woman holding hands, jumping together from somewhere near the 80th floor.
I was supposed to be on the 82nd floor for a 9 o'clock meeting, and I was about 10 minutes late to get there. And they're telling me now that planes were going through the 82nd floor area. So I guess I was kind of covered by somebody up above.
As the debris rained down, blowing shoes, briefcases, pencils, and other articles from people's desks, the blinding smoke enveloped most of Lower Manhattan's world-famous skyline. Within an hour, the towers were falling down.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
At St. Vincent's Hospital, stretchers lined the streets. Doctors and nurses stood by with IV bottles as ambulance after ambulance arrived, carrying survivors clearly still in shock. Even the city's emergency medical workers themselves among the victims, firefighters and police officers. One couple answered the call for blood donations.
I saw the second tower come down. I saw more than I ever wanted to see in one day.
And it was enough to bring you down here to help. What do you hope to do here?
There's nothing else we can do, but give blood is something we can do, and I hope everybody who can do that will do that.
All right, something else we want you to look at here coming up in a second. First of all, we have just been corrected. The president is apparently now
on his
coming
way
back
to
Washington, D.C. Apparently it's been established that the situation is under control enough to bring him back to the nation's capital. I wanted you to take a look at something else now. This just came to us from CNN. This is amateur video shot by a Dr. Mark Heath as things were happening. Take a look.
Oh, my God.
He just said this perspective is from the West Side Highway.
You guys going in?
Yep.
Come with you. You know, you might not want to get too much closer because the more buildings could come down, then we're not going to help anybody.
All right.
I think we should. Yeah.
Where's the incident come out?
Let's just. Yeah. Okay. Let's just wait right here. Let's just station up right here. Okay.
All right. Doctor.
Why don't we set up? Can you hang IVs from this pole here?
Okay.
Okay.
Where'd you get gloves there, buddy?
Yeah. We just heard another explosion. They're handing out gloves and masks. The consensus is it's too unsafe to go in there. Just gonna wait here until they bring some people out.
Just to let you know what you're watching here, I believe, this was just fed to us from CNN, I believe this is amateur video shot by a doctor who, it appears, is setting up a MASH unit over by the West Side Highway, cautioning the rescue workers not to go any closer into the heart of the financial district because of the threat of additional buildings collapsing. And he is just keeping his videotape rolling while he sets up his medical station there.
There'll be a lot of journalism coming out of this, and as the days go on, but right now the big concentration is just saving as many lives as possible, getting as many people out of there as they possibly can.
And that gives you some idea of the destruction, the dust, the smoke, and the debris everywhere in Lower Manhattan, even as far over as the Hudson River.
The other target that was hit today was the Pentagon, and we're going to go there now to Tom Cole, who's standing by for us. He's the Washington Bureau and the Tribune stations. Tom?
Yeah, our situation here in the nation's capital is much less pandemonium than what you folks have been witnessing all day. In fact, the only visible or tangible effects of this morning's attacks on the nation's capital is that smoke billowing out of the head of the military hierarchy here in the nation's capital, the Pentagon. That fire broke out shortly after an explosion that eyewitnesses say was an American Airlines jetliner crashing into the west wing of the military establishment headquarters. Eyewitnesses reported hearing the high whine of an engine before they heard the dull thud of the explosion and then the blast itself. There are a number of dead inside the Pentagon. We are not sure of the numbers. Dozens have been injured. But here is the status as we know in terms of where the military establishment stands and where the government establishment stands. As of a few moments ago, the president was in Omaha, Nebraska at the United States Strategic Command, where he has instant access to all military assets. We are now getting word that the president is getting back on Air Force One and is coming back to Washington, and he's preparing to address the nation tonight, we are being told, from the White House. That is the latest as far as the president is concerned. As far as the vice president, the first lady, the vice president's wife, they are all sequestered in secure locations. As far as the governmental apparatus, the Congress, the leadership of the Congress, especially those members who are in the order of succession, succession. The Speaker of the House, the Senate President Pro Tem, they are all in secure locations kept away from the Capitol. The rank and file members have also been put in a secure bunker somewhere out of the city. In effect, the government is operating, just not in the places we are normally used to seeing them operate. As far as the rest of the city is concerned, the District of Columbia mayor has declared a state of emergency for the nation's capital, which in essence means that the entire city is shut down, essential personnel only allowed into the city. We're not clear how long that state of emergency is going to last. But I can tell you, every single federal building, every single monument, locked down, secure, armed guards around everything. There's nobody going in. There are no vehicle traffic going into any of the federal facilities, and there's no pedestrian traffic either. About the only problem that the situation the district is facing right now is the gridlock of everybody trying to get out of the city. Live from Washington, Tom Cole, WB11 News.
Tom, thank you. Back here in New York, we are reports now that 2 more buildings at the World Trade Center complex are burning now and in danger of collapsing. 2 more buildings. The fires are said to be in buildings 7 and 5. This morning, it was towers 1 and 2 that were hit by the airplanes that collapsed. There are now fears of more fire and a possible collapse in buildings 7 and 5.
Right, something some people might not know. The World Trade Center is actually a complex of a total of 7 buildings, of which the 2 most prominent were the 2 towers. There are others, 2 of them now on fire. And you can see, once again, we've kind of been judging, the only way we have of judging all day is whether or not active fires are still burning. And that is if the thick black smoke is coming back up. After a short while ago, you saw from Larry Hoff's vantage point that the smoke seemed to be clearing, and now it seems to be increasing. Once again, fires still burning in the World Trade Center complex.
Mary Murphy is with us right now, and Mary, you understand you have...
We've been monitoring all the tape from the eyewitnesses coming in. We have a lot of brave cameramen out there, and I just saw some tape that came in from a Michael Benfante. He's a sales manager who worked in Tower 1 for the World Trade Center, and he was on the 81st floor of the building, and he thinks the explosion was on the 88th floor. He was trying to get down a stairwell, and he told us that he actually strapped a woman who was in a wheelchair onto some makeshift gurney to get her down, and right when they got down, the building exploded again. A very emotional man who managed to get up on West Street North and get to some fire vehicles, and he told us what happened, what it was like down there at Ground Zero.
The whole Marriott is caved in, and there's dust and debris all over the place. And I was thinking of going back to try and find people for my office, but it was chaos. So John's like, "Let's go." I start to leave, and I see people jumping from the top of the World Trade Center. And then I'm walking out, and some reporter's interviewing me. And I'm standing next to John, and then the top of the thing blew up. And it just exploded and started coming down. I was running for my life, and me, the fireman, John, we were just taking off, man. This shit was falling down behind us. It was coming up behind us. And I just saw this truck, and I knew it was right behind me, and I just slid underneath it. And I thought it was John behind me, and it was a fireman. And we stayed down there, and everything just went black. Shit was coming down all over us. This last explosion. And everybody's screaming for help, and I'm just underneath there, and I'm tired and breathing in a lot of smoke, and just black, and it's just pitch black. I mean, you couldn't see a thing, and it took like a couple of minutes, at least 5 minutes, to subside, and then all of a sudden it started subsiding, and the fireman was on my back, and he's like, "You're all right, just stay down." And
that was Michael Benfante, a sales manager who works on the 81st floor of the Twin Towers, the one-time Twin Towers now, and he managed to get north on West Street and get to some emergency help. He was covered in soot. I saw his shoes, his whole outfit, his suit was covered. He had a friend with him that he kept referring to. The 2 of them got out together. He said he doesn't know what happened to the woman in the wheelchair, that he got down to the bottom floor because the second explosion came right away, and if you didn't move out fast enough, you don't know if you got buried in any debris. He doesn't know also what happened to a cameraman who was interviewing him right at that moment that the second explosion, the second plane hit.
That is what is so devastating, and I think we're going to find is so devastating that's going to add to the loss of life and injuries, is that it's a you know what it is? It's a virtual situation, as terrorists often do. The cruelest terrorist trick is to explode one bomb, have all the emergency personnel and people rush to the aid of those who have been hurt and then explode another bomb.
Well, there was a man
in
there
a
from
way,
the
this is
Hatzela.
the same type of situation, except it was one plane hitting one tower.
And
People rushed to the site, including, you're mentioning cameramen, journalists, emergency personnel, firemen, and then the second plane came in and hit the second tower.
And there was an emergency worker there from Hatzela, the Jewish ambulance service that's primarily based in Brooklyn and Manhattan. And he said, now you know what they go through in Israel. Because that's what happens. You'll have one bomb go off, say, in a pizza parlor, and then as the emergency workers get there, another bomb's going off in a train station.
And like I said, it is the cruelest way of doing it, because it's a way of gathering even more innocent victims.
Mary and Jim, I have another update for you right now. Just this handed to me. 7 World Trade Center, which is located on Betsy Street. It's a 60-story building. Firefighters on the scene say that building is right now severely leaning towards the south. And officials believe the sustained severe damage when tower number 1 went down is causing this. They've cleared the surrounding blocks, and as we can see from the live shot here, as you can see, the smoke is getting darker, which is an indication that the fire is returning. This is a picture of
Air Force One returning to Washington. I know that at times like this, whoever occupies the White House sees it as a very important part of their symbolic role as leader of the country to be there. And I'm sure when the president and his advisors got word that the all clear had been issued in Washington, that they came back. He's basically been all around the country today. He's been to Florida, where he heard about it, Louisiana. I assume he made it all the way to Omaha, to a strategic center out there, and now is back in Washington, where it's believed he will be addressing the nation on television tonight.
And apparently he has been in constant touch with Colin Powell and with Dick Cheney, even.
Yes.
Right now, we're told that 7 World Trade building is being evacuated. I said earlier that it is leaning dangerously, they say, the firefighters say, towards the south, and they're trying to get people out of there as quickly as
I would assume they've been working on that for some hours.
All on, in case there's anybody left. We're going to go now to Lolita Lopez, who's standing by right now on the 59th Street Bridge. Lolita?
Traffic continues to move smoothly here at the 59th Street Bridge off of 2nd Avenue. Both cars and people are being diverted away from Manhattan and into the outer boroughs. Here from 59th Street Bridge, they are obviously going into Queens. It's about a 20-minute walk for people here making their way, many from the downtown area from where the incident happened. They're going through this way, and recently we have seen many emergency vehicles making their way into Manhattan, including one thing we see if we show the video here, a demolition truck carrying construction equipment. That equipment is going towards, presumably, down to downtown, showing that we also have many people making the trek across the bridge, going in. We could show you some of that over my left shoulder as well. People are still making the move down there. They understand that the subways are packed. Metro North is the only thing that's really working to go uptown and into Jersey. Other things, buses are presumably working, but of course it is packed along the streets as well. And we did talk to a supervising officer here who seems to say that this is going to continue throughout the evening and the night. He wouldn't say if Manhattan was going to be locked down. He didn't hear any word of that yet, but indeed that could happen as well. Live at the 59th Street Bridge, I'm Lolita Lopez. Back to you guys in the studio.
Okay, thank you very much, Lolita. We are going to go now to a phone conversation with Mr. Lou Coletti. Mr. Coletti, make sure that I have your title here right. You are chairman of the Building Trades Employers Association?
That's correct.
All right, and you are basically involved in people and organizations that work with construction, with heavy equipment, the kinds of equipment that is going to be needed for this massive rescue effort which is getting underway. What is it that you'd like to get across today?
Well, what we would like to offer to both city and state officials is our assistance. I've spoken with Ed Malloy, who's the president of the New York City Building Trades. We're prepared to bring whatever equipment, mobilize whatever people that the city and the state needs in this effort to deal with this tragedy. It's kind of difficult during this chaotic time to reach out to the emergency management people. But we're prepared to provide whatever assistance we can.
You haven't been contacted by any of these people yet? Is that what you're saying?
I think I've been calling One Police Plaza, but I keep getting cut off. I think it's naturally chaotic as we begin to deal with this issue. But we want our political leaders to know that we're prepared to do anything that we can to help with this situation.
Are you hearing anything, Mr. Coletti, about what the extent of the effort is going to be down there, what the extent of the destruction is?
No, the only thing I have to compare it to is what happened in the World Trade Center bombing, and many of our members were involved in helping to rebuild the World Trade Center, and that was a tremendously intensive effort. This has got to be even greater than that magnitude.
Would you like to, Mr. Coletti, give a phone number out over the air? I kind of leave that up to you in case somebody is watching this who would be the relevant people to take you up on your offer.
Yes, my telephone number is 212-481-0240. Just to tell you, I've had calls from as far as Michigan, people offering to bring equipment, bring people in to help us out in New York City.
It could be a situation, Mr. Coletti, where, much like an earthquake, there may be survivors in the rubble. Is your equipment perhaps geared up to be able to help in an effort like that?
We're prepared to reach out to all the 1,500 contractors based on the leadership and direction of the emergency management personnel to do whatever we can to help with deal with this situation.
You said you helped in rebuilding after the 1993 crisis. It's too early, obviously, to really know, but just looking at the pictures right now, do you see what do you see in terms of the rebuilding process here? What's the difference?
The difference is we don't have either one of the World Trade Centers.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Mr. Coletti, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully somebody will take you up on your offer.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to now give you some of the numbers again for the blood donations. These are the places that you can go to donate blood, although some of the places, the hospitals, they say they're overwhelmed. So maybe you could try to give blood at these places. The New York Blood Center, which is 310 East 67th Street, New York Blood Services, 150 Amsterdam Avenue, and the City Corp Center, which is at 153 East 53rd Street.
And if in fact these places are swamped today, as some of the hospitals are, we would certainly, I'm sure the effort is going to be continuing tomorrow. So if you can't get in today, think about tomorrow.
The American Red Cross, by the way, is opening 4 shelters on Long Island for people who work on the island but live in the city or can't get back home tonight. And these are, let me just give them to you very quickly, Nassau Community College Gymnasium, which is in Garden City, Long Island University, which is on the CW Post campus at the Interfaith Chapel at Northern Boulevard in Brookville, Southside Senior High School at 140 Shepherd Street in Rockville Center, and Plain Edge High School in Wingate. And Peony Drives in North Massapequa, and these are places that are open now to allow emergency crews room to respond to the World Trade Center explosions, and say these are drop-in centers that you can make use of.
Okay. We're going to give you some, actually, here are the flights. Here are the flights that were hijacked and crashed today. From United Airlines, Flight 93 from Newark to San Francisco, Flight 175 en route from Boston to Los Angeles, and 2 American Airlines flights were lost. Flight 11 from Boston to Los Angeles, Flight 77 from Washington to Los Angeles. We want to let you know also the Long Island Expressway, which Jill was just telling us a few moments ago was shut down westbound, has now been reopened in Suffolk County in both directions. Part of this an effort to allow the people who work in Nassau County to head east to get home.
Did we say, you just said that about the Long Island Expressway,
Long Island Expressway back goes. So slowly, some of the major arteries and railways are gearing back up again. We're going to go take back a look now at some of what's happened from earlier today. This was earlier, obviously, with the towers still standing. I believe this came after both towers had already been hit, and that meant that we were just at this point 15 or 20 minutes. Oh, here comes the second tower. You get a looking at it from the ground up as opposed to the elevated shot, you get a much greater feel for the sheer destruction and power of that plane striking the building. And there goes tower number 2. And about 20 minutes later,
I think we're going to go now to
tower number 1.
Tom Cole, standing by at the Pentagon.
All right, Tom, you still there? Tom is our Tribune Network Washington Bureau person, and I believe joins us now. Tom.
How are you? It says the situation here in Washington is calming down, comparatively so in response to your situation in New York. You can see the fire at the Pentagon is pretty much contained at this point. That smoke is thinning. It suggests that the fire department and the security and emergency personnel at the Pentagon are doing their best to get a handle on the situation. It is the only tangible effect of this morning's attacks on the nation's capital, but it is not, without exception, the only thing that's happened here in Washington. The entire government apparatus has been moved out of Washington into secure locations. The president, we have been told, is now en route back to Washington. He has left the strategic command in Nebraska, where he had command of all military assets, instantaneous command of all military assets. We've now been told he's en route back to, via Air Force One, back to Washington and to the White House, where we are told that he will address the nation from tonight. The First Lady is out of Washington. The Vice President and his wife have been removed to secure locations, as have the leadership of the Congress, especially those members in the order of succession in our government. They have been put off in secure locations. The rank and file members of Congress have been sequestered in a secure bunker. The underlining note to all of this is that our government is still in operation. It may not be working out of the places that we're normally used to seeing them, but they are open for business. And if I can say one thing about being open for business, the reaction from members of Congress is near unanimous to support the president, whatever action he decides to take. This is not a situation where there is a right way or a partisan way to do something. We've been hearing from members on both sides of the aisle. Without question, they support whatever the president decides to do.
Thank you very much. We will be checking in with you as the evening goes on.
You know, terrorism experts say there was simply no way to prepare for what happened today at all. The attacks in Washington and New York. Gene Poteet is quoted as, he's the president of the Association of Former Intelligence Officers, and he's quoted as saying the terrorists must have used their own pilots. He says a pilot wouldn't have flown into the World Trade Center even with a gun to his head.
Correct.
Says the attack is an enormously long-planned, obviously carefully planned operation. We're going to go right now to our colleague and friend, Christina
Summers is here,
who
one of our producers here at the station.
Is fine after living through a hellish experience earlier.
Yeah, just when we sort of thought things had calmed down there and what was going to happen happened. I was there right before the collapse, and I was in a store making a phone call, and there was the window display outside, and the door was a window, and all of a sudden this woman just started freaking out, saying, oh my God, and I looked over, and it was just this avalanche of debris that looked like it was just coming straight at you like a tidal wave, and we didn't know what to do.
Did you think you had to try to outrun it? Was all you could do, correct?
No, we were looking for a back door. We were in this store just trying to figure, is there a back door or something? Because it was coming through the front.
Coming through into the building.
Coming into the store.
We should also mention that you said that the subway, as far as the dust and debris went, the subway apparently was not a safe place to be as well.
No, we got out of there, and it took about 3 blocks before we could see anything because it was pitch black, and all you saw were these huge flakes of things just falling down, and I had it all in my eyes too,
Your
so
eyes
I could
are still
barely
red
see.
and running,
yeah,
I can see that.
They're itchy, and my skin has been itchy. And then I walked past a subway station, and when after 3 blocks we could finally see, and I saw these people coming out of the subway, and they were worse off than we were. It looked like a bag of cement had just been poured all over them. And I was asking around, what happened? Because we didn't know, was there a bomb in our building? We were right across the street from a federal building, so I assumed that's what got hit. Mm-hmm. And then the woman from the subway goes, no, the bomb was in the subway. We all thought we were right in the center of the bomb because nobody had an idea what was going on.
You must have been terrifying.
It gives you some idea of the magnitude of the explosion, that everybody felt it was happening directly to them, no matter where they were.
And this was blocks away, but everyone just started talking, saying, where were you? What did you hear? What did you hear? And it really wasn't until I got 10, 20 blocks away that I heard radios going on everywhere in cafes, people with cars, with 20 people surrounding the car, just listening to the radio to find out what was going on.
Pitch blackness, you said. Just you
Pitch
could not
black.
see anything. That
it was
must be
amazing.
The most incredible experience.
It was daylight when I walked in there, and I just wanted to make a phone call. And I was there maybe 5 minutes. And then we walk out, and it was just pitch black. You could not see anything. I had somebody in front of me. I could not see them. I didn't know when the sidewalk was ending and the street was starting.
And that in itself must have been the most terrifying thing. When I hear about the World Trade Center disaster from 1993,
right,
and you hear about the people climbing down the stairwells and as the smoke was coming up, the pitch blackness, that would be the nightmare, really, to not be able to see anything. It must have been much the same.
And it was hard
morning.
to breathe, and you kept thinking, oh my God, if I fall down, nobody's even going to find me.
Right, right.
So I just kept talking. I just kept saying, I can't see, I can't breathe, I can't see.
How long did this go on before you could actually see something?
It felt like a lifetime, but it was at least 3 blocks.
And you were with how many
Down
people at this
Broadway.
time? You were holding on to someone in front of you? Was there
No.
somebody holding on to you?
We weren't holding on, but there were 8 of us in the store, and once the agent said, there was a federal agent who just came in, I guess at the last minute, once he said, everybody get out, we don't know if this structure is going to collapse, because he didn't really know what was going on either. He just said, go evacuate now. We all started going out, and we lost each other out there. It was like being in a huge fog. I have no idea where anybody else was. And it was blocks later that I finally saw somebody, because I figured he said go right and keep going. I'm bound to see daylight.
And you finally did. Thank
Yeah,
God.
it was amazing.
Glad you made it out. Thank you for joining us once again here. We may talk to you again as the evening goes on here. First
Stay
of all,
with us.
we're going to hear from the mayor here, but something very important has just come across the Associated Press wire, leading to what I think a lot of people have suspected all day long. I'm quoting here, United States suspects Osama bin Laden, the terrorist mastermind who apparently is an